I am Coach Sess, motivated and determined, and you are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. Fight fans, coaches, teammates, or anybody else who's part of the mad world, is Coach Sess. I'm taking the time to quickly go over the events that happened on Saturday night. Three that I had my eye on. One was Spartyka in Virginia. The other is 864 Fighting Championships in South Carolina. And the other, of course, the UFC in North Carolina. My overall impression was, for three events going on, one event being established in the area, Spartyka, another being established on the world level, the UFC, and the other having this premier event, 864. I thought that 864 and Spartyka did a better job getting the local attention versus the UFC. The UFC didn't put a lot of promotion into this. Only pretty much the true diehards who were aware made a big deal about it. I'm not going to go over that card. Didn't super dislike it. It was enjoyable, it was watchable, but I wasn't happy that the North Carolina contingent didn't pick up wins. Couldn't be helped in two of those fights. But the fight with Kish versus Kim, I was confused why Kish didn't get that victory. It looked to me that she won the fight. But nonetheless, Derek Brunson was KO'd in the first, and Jordan Rinaldi didn't make it out of the first either. So I was kind of disappointed that the two guys I wanted to see win didn't get the victories. But you know what? They're still in the UFC. They're going to get more opportunities. Little holes in the game that they need to fix. If you ask me, the only thing that I really saw with Derek was he defended the kick from Souza the same way. He kept throwing a body kick, and he defended it the same way. And then when Souza went back to that kick, instead of throwing it to the body, he threw it to the head. But Derek defended it the same way he defended the body kicks earlier. And that's why you want to vary your defense, just like you vary your offense, so that your opponent does not get a clue as to what you're doing setting up your offense and what you're doing setting up your defense. That's what I saw for the UFC. The UFC, just in terms of its marketing, some of the overnight numbers came out, and the UFC got 1.5 million viewers. Doing anything over a million is still good, So some of the concern that was on the internet was, these are the lowest numbers ever, blah, 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 blah. And that's fantastic, because we're talking about the UFC and their lowest numbers of all time. We're not talking about the lowest numbers ever for TV. And you're going to have those ups and downs when you put on so many events as the UFC does, and you have so much product out there as far as the network goes, and you're on pay-per-view, you're on TV. It's just a lot of content, and people become oversaturated with it. Sometimes they tend to just back off, and that's perfectly okay. And besides, this card wasn't superstar studded, so 1-5 is good. Some of the comments that were made out there, some people being facetious, saying, hey, there was a card last night. Some saying, hey, it wasn't worth giving up a Saturday night for, but enjoyable nonetheless. One just said, I'll be honest, this card slipped my mind till like Friday, so I didn't get to watch it. I think this is the concern that Demetrius Johnson has about him being who he is as a champion, but he doesn't get that championship push. Part of that is the UFC. It's not up to the fighters to jump out there and quote unquote sell their own tickets. The UFC has to push them and make them seem special. They have to make us as the fans want to be invested in that storyline, in that drama, to see what the in-ring ability is like. And if they're not doing that, they're doing themselves a disservice and they're hurting the fighters overall. A64, I thought they did a good job. You go to the website, you sign up, you have to make an account, and I thought the fights were pretty good. But Stephen Bonner was part of the announce team. There were some aspects to it that I liked from a marketing standpoint, but most people probably wouldn't like in terms of just getting the show, getting to it and getting through it. They had some commercials and advertisements and marketing stuff going on in between rounds. You could hear the announcer calling out different sponsors at different times, and I thought that was good and intelligent, because if you're going to be able to pay guys these high ticket prices, you're going to have sponsorships coming from somewhere. So you just can't foot the bill and go out of business. I thought the show overall, the fighting itself, I thought the fighters did a good job. Keith Rockstar Richardson unfortunately got taken out in the first round. Just trying to go off the top of my head here. I think Jared Scoggins picked up a win. I think he stopped his opponent in the first round. Tony Rogers III, he picked up a win. I think it was a decision. Roger Carroll was able to hit his opponent with a knee bar. Nathan Wims from down in Georgia picked up a win. John Sweeney actually had a decent fight with Dave Morgan, and Morgan was taking the fight to Sweeney and getting him with a strong takedown, decent ground and pound. But ultimately, John Sweeney came through being John Sweeney. Jafani Hyde defended the 170 state championship. Charleston Poole, outstanding. Can't say enough about the guy. And I think Kevin Nguyen from Modern Warrior MMA, he picked up a win. Might be some I'm forgetting, but I don't know a lot of them. But I'd say out of the ones I don't know, there might be 2 or 3 matches I just didn't know, or maybe I just knew one side of the coin. But decent show overall. Thought it was good. And one of the things they had on the website is they had these graphics where you could see who was fighting, matched up against who, and then when you click on it, you get little additional information about that particular fighter and his background. It's not completely filled out because they're just starting, so as they progress, the fighters get more details and more information goes into these blanks. So I thought that was pretty good. As far as the pay-per-view goes, since I didn't really get to see all the fights in real time, I did try to go back and see if I could see it in replay. There is a notice that says that 24 hours later that they will put up the replay. So I've gone back at this point, still not there, but we'll see. It's not a make or break deal. I caught the fights I wanted to see. It was just a good card overall. I guess if you look for pros and cons, so I give you the pros, that it was a good card, good fighting, good presentation. So I thought that the team brought a lot of personality to it. It was fantastic for me. Spartyka, I just probably, of the 3 shows that I was most familiar with, the 3 shows that I really enjoyed, it was Spartyka. It's just had a lot of names on the card that if you follow Spartyka, that you're already familiar with, that you already know. And one of the things that caught me about Spartyka is that right after the fight, you could already go to Tapology, not so much as mixedmartialarts.com, but definitely Tapology, and get the results almost in real time. And that's pretty unique for a local show. Some of the guys who I was interested in, Troy Kane, who's out of North Carolina, he picked up the 85 title. Imani Smith, who was a longtime Spartyka guy, he retained the 170 title, or he reclaimed it. I think that's the way it worked. He reclaimed it. Jacob Ashley retained the 145 championship. Corey Champion, can't say enough about this guy. Corey Champion has fought about 4 times in 2017, his first time in 2018. He's scheduled to fight again in March of 2018, and if he gets one more in before June, he would have fought some 6 or 7 times in a 12-month span. That's pretty darn good for an amateur. That's pretty darn good for anybody. Alexander Olave taking on Thomas Blair. They went to a decision, and Olave got the decision, a unanimous decision from the judges. And Mitch Aguiar taking on Brandon Pennington. That was a fantastic fight. That was a fantastic fight. Brandon Pennington was taking him down at will in the first 2 rounds. But I have to say, I've watched Mitch going back to 2014, 2015, maybe even a little earlier than that. But he's always been a big guy, and he breaks down from 200 to fight at 170 or 185. And usually he comes out in this barrage, and this barrage is slow and cumbersome, but it's a barrage. This time he took his time, and something's changed in his fighting style, but he looked more explosive. He looked like he had better conditioning. He looked like he could control the explosion. He looked like he could control the rate of his degradation in the fight itself. And by the 3rd round, he caught up to Pennington and just overwhelmed him. And it was Pennington did land some good shots, but Mitch just could walk through him and put hands on him. Went for a couple guillotines, and didn't finish him with anything, but he did outstrike him, and ultimately the referee had to step in and end the fight. And somewhere in the commentary, one of the broadcasters had mentioned that after, I guess they weighed in on Friday night, so on Saturday, I guess somewhere at this point, they asked Mitch to weigh in again, and he weighed 195 pounds. So that means he had a 25-pound jump, and who knows what Pennington came back to, because there's not a requirement that they actually, make you re-weigh in. So Mitch looked big, looked strong. I don't know, if he can carry that long term. But nonetheless, he looked impressive. The card was good overall. There were some audio issues, but I think that had more to do with what browser you were using. My son loaned me his super duper computer, and when I played everything through it, I didn't have any problems. And the broadcast replay was up this morning, first thing. And like I said, you can find the results on Tapology.com. So that's my impressions of the fights that took place yesterday or last night. They were super awesome. I thought all 3 did like I said, overall good job. If I had to put it in an order, I go Spartyka, 864 Fighting Championships, and then the UFC. I am Coach Sess, and you've had words with the Mad Coach.